Huh? Say what?
Yeah. We're waiting on you.
Yep, so we're ready when you are.
I'm going to make it small for a minute, and I'm going to go to volume.
Thank you. It is 5:11. I'd like to call the September meeting of the Human Affairs and Reconciliation Commission meeting to order. Apologize for my tardiness. Let's open the meeting as we customarily do with a moment of silence, reflecting on the charge of this commission, but also the conditions around the world that concern us with human relations and the notion of humanity. Taking a minute to shake off the dust of the outside world and to focus ourselves on the work that we have to do today. So a moment of silence, if you would. Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone that signed up for public comment? No, we don't. Is there anyone in the audience who is here not for presentation, but for public comment? Okay, if not, then let's move on to the approval of the minutes of the August 14th meeting. They were previously circulated. Are there any deletions or corrections? Moved and seconded for approval.
What? If we can get
Discussion? I'm sorry, Carol, I didn't hear you.
I was asking if we were gonna see Dr. Knight on a rescheduled opportunity.
Okay, let's
Believe it or
pick
not.
that up at the, shortly, okay?
Okay.
So at the end of
It's
the
petty,
meeting,
but it is the 19th century, not 9th.
19th century, okay. So the motion to accept the minutes with any necessary corrections. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, so ordered. I'll delay chairperson's comments for later. I don't believe Stephen is joining us.
You don't have Zoom loaded. I have
That's
to.
Tom.
Stephen? Okay,
I think
so
that's Tom.
let's move on to the topic of the moment. Commissioner Tom has been consistent, keeping us abreast of developments in the area of the unhoused. This has been a topic that we visited a year ago. We were pleased to have a stellar panel, and we have an expanded stellar panel. And there are things for us to become smarter about. Tom, do you want to introduce the panel?
Thank you.
And if the panelists will come.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can.
We're having trouble hearing all of you, but I just heard my name.
Yeah, I was asking if you wanted to introduce the panelists.
Sure.
They're taking their seats now. You can start your introductions.
No, we're not.
I don't think he can hear us, Jerry.
Tom, you can begin your introductions if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go in order of our guest speakers. Latasha Jenkins Flood. Maybe if you raise your hand, Perfect. Thank you, Latasha. Reverend Dr. Marion Platt III. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Reverend. Shelley Clark, 180 Place Outreach Director. Welcome, Shelley. Craig Logan, Charleston Metro. Thanks, Craig. Anita Alston Gore, Homeless Coordinator, City of Charleston. Hello, Anita. Brandon Lilienthal, Homeless Coordinator, North Charleston. Hello, Brandon. And Suzanne Young, Neighbors Together. Hi, Suzanne. Thank you all for coming. Thanks, Jerry.
Okay, I believe you have received your instructions, from our leader, Tom. I believe you have 3 to 4 minutes, each of you, to address the three questions. And let's begin in the order that he introduced you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Latasha Jenkins Flood, and I'm the Executive Director of the Hope Center. The Hope Center is a homeless day resource center located in downtown Charleston. We opened our doors to the public on June 6th of 2022. We offer a variety of services at the center, which include a hot breakfast, comprehensive wraparound services that includes intensive case management, assistance to those that are in recovery from opioid disorders, showers, laundry, employment assistance, workforce development, anything that you would think that an unhoused person would need to make homelessness a rare, non-reoccurring brief issue. We do it at the Hope Center. I'm especially proud of the work that we are doing in collaboration with the Department of Mental Health to address the mental health needs of our clients. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the great work we're doing at the Hope Center would not be possible without many of the partnerships and people that are on this panel. We work very closely together in a variety of ways because no one agency can address homelessness. I'm excited to be here again with you guys. I look forward to questions, and I promised I wasn't gonna hold the mic too long, so I'm gonna pass it.
Okay. Good role model.
Okay. All right, should I begin? All right, all right. Thank you again, everyone, for the opportunity to speak about an issue that's very close to each and every one of our hearts here. I'll begin a little bit with our organization, Star Gospel Mission, and where we fit within the sequence of care. At Star Gospel Mission, we serve people who are experiencing homelessness and ready to make a change in their lives. We are Charleston's oldest independent faith-based charity. We've been serving Charleston since 1904, and we focus on transitional housing. And so soon we'll be opening a house, a home, some spaces, living spaces for women and children. And we haven't been able to do that since 1989, when Star Gospel Mission was flooded out by Hurricane Hugo. In terms of the continuum from street outreach to permanent housing, we operate somewhere in the middle. We're not emergency housing and we're not permanent housing. We're the bridge between the two. And so we offer structure, daily routines, case management, recovery support, employment coaching, and spiritual care. And so like Latasha, I want to really honor the other organizations that are here today, because this is not a solo work. We depend so much on the partnerships that are represented here. And so our shared work makes this sequence of care possible. And so to the question about capacity and who we serve, we do provide facilities. We can house about 30 to 35 men at one time in our lodge in different phases. And so with additional space and step-up apartments for those who are further along in the program. And most of our guests stay about 6 to 12 months, though some stay with us up to and just beyond 2 years. Each year, about 100 men enter our Pathways program, and many more receive assistance through GraceWorks, which is our emergency assistance arm. And as I mentioned earlier, we're currently building out our program to once again receive women and children. And I believe that's a response to our most unmet need here in Charleston, South Carolina. And so I look forward to taking some questions, but at this time, I'll go ahead and yield to the next speaker.
Shelley Clark, Outreach Director for 180 Place. We are probably the largest provider of homeless services in the Low Country. Our mission is always to end and prevent homelessness. Our our goal is always to provide tools to individuals and families that need to achieve housing stability. We serve people at every stage of the spectrum, like Latasha was saying, along homelessness. So we work with unsheltered outreach on the streets, get them into the emergency shelter, supportive services, and then finally, our ultimate goal is always permanent supportive housing. We work closely with all the partners on this panel as well as others in the community so that we can make this possible. Currently, our shelter houses 65, we have 65 beds. We sheltered 461 last year and ended in prevented homelessness for 779. We served 722 veterans, over 2,000 engaged in services over 7 counties. And we are also happy to be here and look forward to questions.
I'll go ahead and go. Hey, my name is Craig Logan. I serve as the housing strategist for the Charleston Metro Chamber of Commerce. Much respect to all the leaders up here who work hands-on on this issue. I kind of approach it from a different issue. About 3 years ago, the Charleston Chamber of Commerce launched the Regional Housing Coalition. Our mission is to
Much respect to all the leaders up here who work
profit businesses and nonprofits to unify the region's efforts around housing, identifying that from homelessness up through affluent homes. And so while we don't work directly again on the ground, we approach it from a perspective of policy and legislation. So I mean, I think to continue to do this work, there has to be work done both at the local and state level around this to support it.
Good afternoon. My name is Anita Alston Gore, and I'm the Community Liaison Homelessness Coordinator for the City of Charleston. I enjoy my work. That's number one. And I have a heart and compassion for the people that are unhoused. I work with Latasha. I'm basically housed in 2 different locations. I'm at 8CD, at 2 George, and I'm also at 529 Meeting Street. I am also the person that assists with getting the unhoused employed, those who are actually looking for work. So my job is very important to me, and what I basically do is encourage someone who has lost hope and think they can't do certain things anymore. I encourage them and tell them that they can. Build them a resume. Get in contact with employers that I have connections with, and we make things happen. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Brandon Lilienthal, homeless coordinator with the City of North Charleston. Pretty much boots on the ground, in the woods, under the bridges, working with individuals, getting connected to resources. Also working with individuals who are on the verge of becoming homeless. I actually work with individuals, getting them to whatever resources of their choice. So if individuals need ID, social security cards and things like that, I actually take them to these places to get them situated. Also work with helping individuals relocate to get connected with their families out of state, or if they want to, if there isn't a shelter or anything available bed here, I work with them to get them connected to other resources in other areas. What else? There's so much that I do. Yeah, one-man show, but but no, I'm a one-man show for the North Charleston, but this, I always say, it's me, but it's not just me, because these people help me out so much. So I cannot say I'm a one-man. Yeah, I'm a one-man show employed through the city, but doing this job, like Latasha said, like Dr. Platt said, is we all work together.
I'm Suzanne Young, and I'm with Neighbors Together, and our organization has been around not as long as yours, but since 1983. We were originally Tri-County Family Ministries, and We are, I guess, on the spectrum in two places. We provide emergency services in that we do hot meals, we have a food pantry, a clothing boutique, case management. We have volunteer nurses who come once a week to help clients. And so we have the emergency side of things. And then a couple years ago, those remember last year when I was here, I was talking about Gateway to Housing, and that is a new area we have stepped into where we saw just a huge gap in affordable, available housing for our clients. And so we launched Gateway to Housing earlier this year in May, after a very long struggle to get it off the ground. And I'm happy to say it is doing what we said it would do. And so we have been housing families this summer, and we have housed 12 families. We have 6 landlords that work with us, and we have about 15 agencies that use Gateway to help place their clients. And I think it is not the solution to end homelessness, but I think it is a very powerful tool in that battle. And just like everyone else has said, you know, we all have to work together, and, you know, we're stronger when we work together. And I think it's going to take lots of different solutions and lots of different approaches to make any kind of real progress. And I think doing like what we do at Neighbors Together, where you're doing a couple of different approaches, is really key. And because then, unfortunately, the numbers are just getting worse. And so it's going to take all of us working together, and not just us, but everybody, you know. And so that's what we are thankful to have this opportunity to come back and talk to y'all again a year later. So thank you for that.
So before I ask the commissioners for their questions, your comments about it's getting worse, can maybe each of you will kind of give us a sense of what worse looks like?
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about some of the positive things that have happened. Okay, but what does worse look like?
Affordability. Rental rates are going up tremendously. I'm running into seniors, individuals in their 60s, 70s, living in cars, not being able to afford, rent here because they're on a fixed income. Social Security, the average individual who gets Social Security benefits is what, $945, $965. And to qualify for, if we were lucky to find an apartment that was $800, they don't qualify because, their rent is, you have to make 2.5 times the rent, and just to qualify. So affordability with the housing market has put a damp, is one cause.
Lucky to find an apartment.
And one last thing I'll just mention, evictions. Eviction is a huge deterrent as well. Once an individual gets an eviction on their record, that's permanent. And it forces a lot of families to, live in low-income motels, which are dangerous in high drug areas. But I don't want to hog the money. So affordability and evictions is my opinion.
I'm just going to reverberate what he said. We definitely have an aging population out there. I've also noticed a lot of families that are out living in their vehicles, and being disappeared during the day. So they're the unseen, but they're out there, and definitely having partnerships with healthcare partners and more affordable housing, like Brendan said, is essential to making sure that we can work with everybody that we need to work with to get people off the streets.
Thank you, Shelley. I think one demographic that we often overlook besides our seniors, are the young people that are transitioning out of foster care. Usually when you're coming out of foster care, if you've been in an environment where you've moved from house to house or organization to organization, unless you get those soft skills like budgeting, how to how to manage your anger, how to deal with your trauma. Basically, you're an adult in number and you're forced to go into the world and navigate it and figure it out on your own. And a lot of our young people are struggling with being able to get that done due to many of the reasons that have been mentioned, the rising rent costs, the affordability, their trauma that actually prevents them from functioning because they have unaddressed mental health issues that prevent them from having a work long-term job. So I think that's another area that we need to bring more attention to, our young people transitioning out of foster care. And then I would say second on the list, it would be seniors, just as Brandon mentioned. The Hope Center's actually been working with a senior couple who unfortunately had an eviction, and they survived 2 brutal winters on the street. And I think moving this year forward, they can't afford to do another year on the street in the cold. They're in their late 70s. Even though they're on a fixed income, the husband is still working as a janitor to bring in some supplemental income in order to boost it. And I think it's important that we don't forget about our elders, that we create environments and housing opportunities for not just our elders, but other families who need it. And I think that we need to bring more attention to the affordability along with any respites that may come with eviction remedies. I feel like an eviction shouldn't be a scarlet letter. People make mistakes. Sometimes things happen. And I think if we can get those things done and remedy it, that could lessen the amount of homeless families we have in the Tri-County area.
I mean, I think everything everyone has said up here too as well. I also serve as commissioner for the North Charleston Housing Authority, and kind of what some things that we're seeing too as well, right, is looking at kind of RAD programs and rent allocations, right? For some, even seniors, they fall in the spectrum of making too much for the programs or not making enough, right? And so I think like there has to be some type of reform done through HUD to make sure that that can be addressed. And then additionally, while we're talking about affordability, I also think about just the rapid growth that's happening within our areas too as well. That directly contributes to the increase in rental rates, home affordability, and then also just knowing that Charleston is a military town, right? And so you always think about the veteran population and the growing population that we can expect to be here within our area. I think right now we're about 90,000 people above what the projected population was supposed to be in 2025. And so those numbers will only increase. And so as those numbers increase, I think other sectors of housing affordability will worsen too as well.
Thank you for the question. I highlight and circle everything that has been said already. I'm going to behave myself because I'm in the council chambers. And one of the things that I notice, I haven't run the data, but one of the things that I notice in my community is that affordability is impacted probably because of Airbnbs and absentee landlords who are hogging up affordable housing as a side hustle. And so many of the people who come through our program who get stabilized and strengthened, they have nowhere to settle unless they move to Swansea or Monk's Corner or somewhere. And these are folks who have good jobs downtown, some who work for you. And so that is something that I notice. I would also say a couple of years ago when we started our feasibility study to figure out what the needs of the community are for our expansion, Charleston County School District told us that there were 400 students in Charleston County who were facing or experiencing homelessness. Well, I was saying that number recently, and our superintendent, Anita Huggins, told me that number's jumped, Marion, to 621. And I trust their metrics because the teachers are trained to identify students in the classroom who are experiencing homelessness. And so if I could add another chair, I would say that probably the McKinney-Vento office of Charleston County School District should be up here next time. Finally, I would say, I'm from Charleston, born and raised and made, but I've worked in other municipalities, and the community needs assessment that we commissioned a couple years ago from Star Gospel Mission showed us that on average, cities half the size of Charleston have twice the resources for people experiencing homelessness. And so I'm hoping that we can make some adjustments to that. Cities half the size of Charleston have twice the resources for people experiencing homelessness. I myself have worked in Atlanta, Savannah, Jacksonville, Tampa, and Memphis, Tennessee. And my own hometown has been the very toughest municipality to place someone who is at that moment experiencing homelessness. And I think probably everything that's been said up here, the cost of living and the affordability of housing, I would say is one of the toughest. The other things probably have to do with a philosophy and maybe a morality, but you didn't invite me to preach today. So again, I'm gonna behave myself and I'll yield to Susan.
But I will echo what you're saying because I am not from Charleston. I am from Greenville. And I moved down here almost 4 years ago. And I will say Greenville is much more progressive. From City Hall to just the whole infrastructure. And I did not realize that when I came, because I've been coming to Charleston my whole life. And so I thought I knew Charleston, but when you live somewhere, it's different than when you visit there. And so I agree that I think a lot of it is top down, and I think we also have to look at, how to keep people from becoming homeless, so that you don't have a problem to address. And so, and that can be everything from home repairs to, and I think echoing what everybody was saying about evictions, there is legislation that is being reviewed this fall, H 4270, which is to try to keep, I don't know if you know this, but if your landlord puts you up for eviction, but then you pay it, and so you're not actually evicted, it's still on the public index as though you were evicted.
Mm-hmm.
So it will still come up, even though you never were evicted, which seems insane, right? And so, so this legislation is to try to seal that so that it won't come up if you weren't actually evicted. So things like that need to happen. We also need to increase the eviction filing fee for property owners so that it's not only $40. It's one of the lowest in the Southeast, is our eviction filing fee in South Carolina. So I think it's all the things we're saying, and then these additional things that need to happen so that people have, the ability to get housing. And I think, with everything that's happening at a federal level, more and more resources are being taken away. And so we have to be more creative and figure out how, because the need is getting more. And so how do we strategize and work together to try to help the even larger numbers of people who are experiencing homelessness?
And just for transparency, although I work for the city of North Charleston is ranked number 1 in the nation for eviction rates.
Okay. So,
Sorry. The Housing Justice Network is the one that was putting it forth. Information about it.
Keep it going, that's okay.
North Charleston is the number one.
okay. Tom, you have your hand up. You have a question? Tom, you have your hand up. You have a question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, we're having trouble with the computer, and we turned on the closed circuit, so I think I cut everything, but one of the things when I started making some contacts in July was that, you know, the homeless population is definitely more than it was a year ago. And one of the things, I'm not sure if anybody brought this up because again, we're having problems with our computer, but the unknown cuts in HUD and other programs for the poor will have an even a more serious effect on homelessness. Can anyone comment on that?
Yeah, I think we're all seeing that, and like I alluded to earlier, it's, you know, we have less resources, less funding, less programs that are available, and more demand. And so, and it seems like from everything I've been reading, at least, that's just going to continue. And so, so it's how do we, at a grassroots level, you know, the part we can control, how do we figure out, you know, how through collaboration and sharing resources and contacts and information, come up with solutions ourselves, and we can't really rely on any help coming from somewhere else. So I think we're really going to have to focus more locally. Do y'all agree on how we can come up with solutions?
Thank you. I'm sure, thank you for your observations and kind of put us in context. Commissioners, you have questions?
Yeah, first of all, just kudos for all the work that you guys are doing. I would say you guys are true.
Okay, turn it on, turn volume.
Private partners in this endeavor? Or do y'all have any private partners?
I can respond to some of that. You know, again, I don't think that Star Gospel Mission would exist were it not for the support of the faith communities around Charleston. And I think I've seen churches, synagogues, and mosques all at every one of our organizations helping us serve. And so I think, you know, it is important for us to acknowledge the work of the Holy City, and our skyline spells out something. And the fact that Charleston churches are missional in orientation is evident to all of us.
So just to follow up on that, yeah, I would expect that to be the case, just understanding that we do live in the holy city, and that, you know, faith-based, that's kind of what they're called to do. But outside of the faith-based community, who are some of your private partners?
You're like, tell us about the chamber.
Yeah, so I'll say, kind of in this work, so I know the CRDA right now has a development fund that they're about to launch.
CRDA?
Mm-hmm.
Who that?
The Charleston Redevelopment.
That's the Charleston Regional Development Alliance. Charleston Regional Development Alliance.
CRDA is what I call it. Gotcha. All right, that's just what I know I'm at. But Jason Brown over there is kind of hitting that up, but it's kind of modeled after some private equity funds that Charlotte is doing, and is really having a lot of success around it, right? But again, I think even from like a developer standpoint, unless there is tax credits or LATEC funding to help go in and supplement that development from a developer standpoint, right? It is although it's right, it's a hard business to get into, right, to make the numbers work. So I mean, I think it goes back to legislation or reform at the state level with SE housing, even looking at the way the QAP program works through SE housing. Also, I just wanted to say, you know, Suzanne made something about HUD, and at the federal level, Vernon Bezique with SCASIT has been organizing a group to talk to our senators right now about the proposed new big beautiful bill, right? And what those effects would do to states like South Carolina. South Carolina stands to lose millions, if not billions of dollars in housing. And so I think it is looking at, again, that reform from both the federal and state level to then have those dollars kind of come down so that private development can step in and kind of start providing solutions.
And are you speaking of funding partners or non-funding
Yes.
partners?
Funding partners.
I'll say with the recent changes with the federal government, a lot of nonprofits were, you know, utilizing federal dollars through the continuing care and grants and things like that. So this is totally new to, you know, a lot of agencies and nonprofits. So I guess, well, I can't speak for all, but, you know, a lot of them weren't, I don't want to say a lot of them, but private, you know, organizations and entities wasn't, you know, wasn't a focus of, yeah, I wouldn't say it was always, it was a focus. The focus was always on federal dollars to help these agencies thrive and can move forward. So this is something new. Like you're saying, we got to adapt and, you know, start looking at these private entities, you know, the Boeings, the Bosch, to fund these, fund us.
Well, I think that just building on that particular topic, Charleston a few years ago sort of put a model together. The Homeless to Hope game plan was tapping into the private donors and big business that were working in the vein under the former mayor to establish a fund that ultimately is supporting the Hope Center, as far as I know. And it's also created the money that is supposed to be funding a semi-permanent transitional housing enterprise that the city had identified the land for and was to build an apartment building. And there's still money sitting in that fund that now is unspent and unallocated, as best I understand off the record. So I do think that there is some, you know, there's some precedent that the private donor community did step up when they were solicited to do something that had an end game goal. It's a very nebulous sort of help us every year, all year long for the homeless. People just, you know, they're overwhelmed with solicitation requests, first of all, and most people have their things that they really care about the most, if it's not just directly to their church, and then they trust their church to, you know, be out in the community impacting the needs, then they pick their own favorite charities. So I think, you know, what I'm encouraged about, again, this time that we've invited you here a year later, was the same way that I was impressed a year ago in understanding no one is forcing you to collaborate. Everyone is seeing that that's the only way you're gonna really grow and thrive and at least have an opportunity to do your own individual mission-driven work. So I think that would be an opportunity for our city to help you put your voices together into a collaborative needs assessment. And here are the places where the private, you know, world needs to step up. We have no idea. I know that in 2025, the HUD appropriation was carried through, but that ends potentially in October. Now they're talking about a continuing, resolution. That will help you all because at least they're not going to cut the numbers that you're living under now as far as federal support. But if they do end up getting any sort of new appropriations passed, both the Senate and the House version, and forget Trump version, the Senate and the House appropriations are all going to cut HUD programs in particular. The HUD secretary came out with a statement. I don't know if it's in writing yet, but I saw a webinar today that they were quoting him and he was on the screen. HUD is going to have to start living with less. That's the theme coming from the federal government to anyone who's in the work that you all are doing. So I do think that it's the collaboration part that, and I know that that's, requires extra hours in every day. I used to do a nonprofit. I was part of the continuum of care and just going to those meetings and having a failure portion of the reports and all of that. But actually going out and collaborating and finding the ways that you can connect on a very strategic level, day in and day out, it takes a lot of hours out of your day. So I would personally think that HARC could at least begin that sort of request to the city that we have the opportunity to weave together the groups that are hopefully preventing homelessness to begin with, including getting to the legislature side and all of that.
So Carol, if you could, that perhaps is a recommendation. See if there are other questions and then see if there are suggestions for action on our part at this point. Other questions? Thanks for the.
I've got two questions. One of them, just to make sure I'm understanding this right. I'm looking, and Alvin addressed this a little bit, basically the financing here. And it appears to me that we've got one person getting supported a paycheck from a government entity, one person from commercial business entity, and everybody else is getting their paychecks, because I'm hoping y'all are making a living doing this, on charity. Is that a correct assessment? I got 1, 2. Okay. Okay, good. Because I was hoping we had more government funding behind this. The second question, just to help with perspective, I spent a lot of time out in San Diego and had a problem out there, but because the area was so nice, a lot of people would come to San Diego, which is also a high cost of living area, but because the weather was so benign, people could go there, live on the streets, and exacerbate the problem. And so I know Greenville is pretty, I got up there a couple of years ago, it's pretty nice, but you've got a lot of land around there and it's not terribly expensive. Everything here is expensive, has been addressed already. And people like to come here. Do we have any idea how much of the challenge is imported versus folks that have been here and have fallen on the hard times? And I don't know if there is an answer. I'm just, if anybody's got a feel for that.
To answer your question, I think it's a little of both from what we've seen out there. We definitely see people who have been here, lived here, a storm happens and their roof is no longer, the space is no longer livable. And then we've seen also an influx of people who are coming from out of town to find work, and that falls through, and then they end up being stuck here. So we see a little bit of both.
Or they're unfortunately diagnosed with, I'm sorry, I should have spoken to the mic, or they are diagnosed with terminal cancer, which makes them unable to work, or some of them are actually responsible for caring for Asian adults. And because they can't afford to put their parent into a nursing facility, they have to stop working, and that can lead to homelessness. And I think because the world is so different, it's really changed everyone's perspective, no matter which part of the class you come from, whether it's middle class, higher middle class, lower middle class. These are just different times that we're in. So I feel like as a panel, one of our strengths is we are very strategic in how we approach those different groups of people, because what might work for our clients that fall under the 30% area median income may not work for a family that's at 50, 75 or higher. So I think it takes that continued collaboration, being really inventive and creative. And we need support from our government agencies, our faith-based partners, and even our school districts. I have schools that contact me to say, hey, we're inspired by the work you're doing. It's not a lot, but we want to make a small donation from our booster club. Well, that small donation may be able to buy a couple of extra nights for a family who's staying in a hotel in North Charleston who would otherwise be in the streets. So again, we truly couldn't do it without each other. And it just shows up differently, if that makes sense.
No, the cross-fertilization is impressive, just to reiterate that.
Yeah, I have a question. I know that, obviously affordable housing is one of the key issues for Charleston and Charleston County. And I know the mayor has been somewhat active in making some propositions and, some people would say, trying to lead different cities. I'm interested in any thoughts that you as a panel might have about what you see him doing or trying to do. Okay.
Or just to add to that, maybe,
Oh, go ahead. Ask
ma-
me first.
maybe what he's not doing, but he should be doing.
I'll just say this. Mayor Cogswell, as you guys are well aware, has proposed a rapid shelter project as one of his solutions to address homelessness. I think that the rapid shelter project is a viable concept. I think it's something that we should get behind and support him. And here's why. When this idea or concept was first introduced, the very first thing I did, not as a person that works for the city, I actually went and talked with the homeless people and asked them, what do you think about this? I showed them what the concept looked like. We did an informal tour with just me and the unhoused people, and they all loved it. They thought it was great. They didn't feel like their dignity was taken away from them. And it actually gave them hope because they felt like, wow, if this can ever become a reality, this might give me another chance to actually transition into a different type of housing. But at the same time, I will have the support that I need in order to transition out of homelessness. I think it's going to take a regional approach. I don't think that the city of Charleston can do it on their own. It's collaboration for us. We all come from different agencies. City of Charleston, North Charleston, county, faith-based, nonprofit, faith-based for Suzanne and Miss Anita City. So I think it's that same perspective when it comes to the Rapid Shelter Project. I know that these projects have been done excellent in other jurisdictions such as Atlanta. Most recently, there's a faith-based organization in Sumter, South Carolina, who has done something similar and is very successful. I think that it takes a lot of courage for the mayor to introduce such a big idea. And I think that we should get behind them and support it because our homeless people deserve a step in the right direction.
I agree that it needs to be a regional approach. My 2 cents to that would be, I think it needs to be a comprehensive approach. The first phase is a good first step, but if you don't have the second phase figured out, then you're just going to be in limbo. And so I think it's not enough to just do the first phase that gets them off the street. You've got to have the next phase figured out too. And I think you need to work on all that at the same time because you don't want to be trying to, build the plane while you're flying it, And so I think it's a good, like Latasha said, it's a good start, but it's not comprehensive enough. Well, of course, Carol, it would be gateway to housing. It would be, yeah, it would be moving them into permanent housing and everybody, moves at a different pace, so some folks would need the first phase longer than other folks would need it because everybody's situation's different. Everybody's got different challenges. So I think we all see that all the time. And so it's not one size fits all. And so you have to be able to pivot and figure out what are the options that need to be available and then have that as part of your approach so that you can have an effective program.
I think I almost envision, to Suzanne's point, there exists an organic portfolio of services with all of the folks who are here. Like our caseworkers know one another. And so Brandon, for instance, might meet someone and hear their story and say, you know, I think you need to get in touch with the folks at 180 Place. Or 180 Place might call us at Star Gospel Mission and say, you know what kind of program you need? You need to go over to Star Gospel Mission and learn about what they do, because the needs are so differentiated, and it helps all of us to know who needs what, so we can kind of triage that as, you know, officially. But right now it exists very organically, I would say.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
I am hearing that there may be some differences in services available to men or to women. So I'm wondering if that gender disparity is sort of widespread. And then also if there are racial disparities in services for unhoused individual, and how that could be addressed.
I'm going to touch one of those. I would say that for women, serving women and children, there's a little bit of a different philosophy, and women experiencing homelessness often are a submerged population, because they typically come with children in tow, and there's the fear of losing their children if they were to disclose that they are unhoused. And so women will take measures that are sometimes dangerous to make sure that they and their children have a roof over their head, and they're reaching out as discreetly as possible, not loudly, about the kind of needs that they have, because they want to keep their babies with them. And so I think the population of women who are experiencing homelessness is probably much larger than the statistics would report, because they're staying in, you know, on the sofa of someone, or staying in a sleazy relationship, or at the Siesta Motor Lodge. And so that's a more submerged population. I'll leave the racial questions.
Everybody just kind of did like this. Well, I'll just say, my colleagues and I had the opportunity to attend the National Alliance to End Homeless Conference in Washington, D.C., maybe 3 months ago. And it was a phenomenal conference. If you ever have the opportunity to learn firsthand what other states are doing about homelessness, I would recommend that conference. It was really good. If Miss Anita was present, so she can kind of echo my sentiments. The number one group of people in this country that are impacted by homelessness are Black men and Black women. They are the first two. Then it's white men, white women, Hispanics, Indian Americans, and then Asians were at the very bottom. Now, there are a myriad of reasons why African American men or women may be number one. It could be criminal justice. It could be generational poverty. It could be a variety of reasons. I think that all communities deserve to receive equal access to the resources that are available. But when you recognize that one or more communities are continuing to experience the same type of issues, I think it takes a little bit more digging and deep and looking at to see how those issues can be addressed. If it's systemic, if it's something that you just need to help them get educated on how to escape poverty or address other issues that may contribute to homelessness. I don't have all of the answers, but I trust what my clients say because they are experts in their lives. So I feel like if a client comes to me and tells me this is the best way to serve me, it doesn't matter if they're Black, brown, white, or whatever color, that's what we're going to do, because we're here based on the needs of the clients and not what we think is best, because they are the experts. I hope that answered the racial question. You know, I have to walk a fine line, but yeah.
So one of the things that's happening at the national level is a reduction in collection of data.
Mhm.
All right, which will make it even harder to answer the question that you asked. But in terms of your own data collection and the use of it, how important is it to collect data, families, veterans, children, and the like, in the context, and it may become a legislative question in the state of South Carolina, but how important will it be for you to be able to continue to collect data, and as you share, with each other, and to make the case? Is that all? That's a projected problem, but I think it may become one.
I will say it is, you can't plan a strategy if you don't know the scope of what you're trying to address. So when you have limited data, that makes it, and you can't spot the trends, like knowing seniors are a growing number experiencing homelessness. It's like trying to do it blindfolded, and so, and also, as much as we all like to think with legislators, heartstrings doesn't always work. You have to have data. You have to show the financial, the economic impact, so you've got to have the data. And when you I write lots of grants. And so you have to have data for grants. And so it really is making things much more difficult because we all operate with transparency and integrity. But if you don't have the data, you're very limited in what you can do.
So is that a collective resource then that you all are working? I know, again, you don't have a mandate to work together to make sure that your data is transferable or cross-cutting or however you talk about it. Is that something that you're volunteering to do universally?
If I can respond to that, is very, very good, insightful question. I think there is, because collaboration is so much a part of this ecosystem. There is, we share data all the time. I've had other organizations say, hey, can we take a look at your community needs assessment to see what it says? And that's something, I view as a gift to the community. And I know that other organizations, like I'm really proud of the way that our friends at 180 Place attract and report data to the rest of the continuum of care. That's very helpful. And so I think it's just, what you see is something that is maybe unique on this stage. Like, this collaboration is absolutely necessary and is very much a part of the way that we survive and help our clients and our guests survive as well. And so, and I do love the question about data. I think when it comes to the overlay of data and people groups and ethnicities and gender and underserved populations, I can say to you that I'm a little concerned about what's happening, because data and demographics are being questioned like never before. And especially when the data shows that the underserved populations come from communities of color or LGBTQ, there's a kind of coldness that has overtaken the compassion of our nation. And when it comes to speaking like this, it's breaking my heart that the data that we work so hard to collect with care and compassion is now being questioned like never before, so that we can serve these specialized populations. And so, yeah.
I just have one other card to put on the table. I think Latasha mentioned the reliance on, an increasing reliance on the mental health services community. And is that something that's very intentional among all of you now? Because that's a whole nother I mean, I know it's very under-resourced, but at least it's another source for joining forces and to tapping into whatever resources are available. And another group that I think has just, come alive in terms of public mission and wanting to be back in the cradle of Charleston is the Tri-County United Way. So the next time we have one of these, they need to be at your table too, right? And are they still thought of as sort of like the opening, the gateway to mental health services, or is there another place that you all go to when your clients obviously need that kind of help?
The Department of Mental Health is one that we use very closely here at the Hope Center. We're also in talks with MUSC right now to see how they can assist us with some of our mental health clients, because one agency can't man it. We are also open to private mental health organizations that want to volunteer and give back, that will agree to ascertain or work with a certain amount of clients. We also partner with NAMI. NAMI is a new mental health organization that's here in Charleston. They focus on individual and family mental health, and it's been a comprehensive relationship, but we're still working at it. One of the challenges, as we all know, with mental health is funding. It takes a lot of money to run a mental health program, but I believe if the funding can come around, the collaborations continue, and we can make more of an impact in that area.
I think we've also had to be very creative with how we approach that as well, because as we know, they're over inundated. And so the time that it takes to get someone seen is probably a few months down the line. And so when you're talking about having someone move into housing, or someone who, you want to work with consistently and not get lost, because sometimes that happens, they have to be at a baseline. It's helpful if they're at a baseline. So that's why it's important to have that mental health piece.
I think we have come close to I think we shot over the time we had allocated this. You guys are so thoroughly informative, and there's so much more that we could ask and say about that.
I do have one thing that I would like to share, and I asked Ms. Andrea to do it before we got started. There's a card in front of you, and I am asking you, the Hope Center, everybody up here on this panel is asking you to respond to what this card is asking you. And it says, what gives you faith that ending homelessness is possible? And I would like if you could give it back to Ms. Andrea, and I can pick it up maybe Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, thank you for that. I was going to ask the question, the cities, the county, and eventually the state will be going through a budget cycle, right? Are there specific requests that are on the table from the consortium, from the collective or individually, that we should be aware of so we can raise information about that?
We all, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, we all need more funding for direct services, eviction prevention, emergency hotel stays, security deposits, utility assistance. We need those things. What was the other? Transportation. Those are things we desperately need. So if you could advocate for that, that would help us out a lot.
So the way these processes work, as I understand it, as an old Treasury guy, some service agency or department makes the request, and it gets discussed in committee, all right, before it goes to the legislature, the council, the county council, whoever the decision-making body is. And I guess my notion is, are there asks that have been put forward, use a city budget, for example, for Charleston City to put additional resources in any of those areas that we should be aware of at this point?
I'm not aware of any. I mean, I don't know everything about the budget. I can look into that and I can get back with you and let you know.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
I just think that that's important. Very often, we're kind of out of sync. We're talking about the challenge. You may have a great opportunity to make an investment, all right, or to protect something from falling through the cracks, right? But we're not making the ask and it's not being loud enough at the right time. So that's, as an old budget guy, couldn't help myself but ask that question.
And I'll just say kind of on that too as well, like going back to really just looking at kind of what the proposed budget will be for 2026. I mean, we're at jeopardy in the state of South Carolina of losing upwards of like $24 million in CBDG home funding, right? Or another $15 million in funding that directly supports these organizations. And so I think the caveat there is while funding requests can be there, if at a federal level, that funding is cut, everybody up here is in jeopardy, right? And so I also think too as well, from a local level, we need to be advocating at the state level for those budget cycles, right? And again, just knowing the budget cycle, January hits, budget is typically debated in end of February, March, right? So conversations now with our state legislators, with our House of Representatives, our senators, we should be having those conversations now so that as pre-files happen in December and then that budget cycle happens, by March, the budget's done. By January, you pretty much know, they know where they're going to send their money to as well. So I think it's critical that we go ahead and start advocating with our House of Representatives and our senators now so that in January, they know in their head where their line item is going to be going.
One quick comment, just we mentioned data, and I think, and I doubt that I'm alone, but I find the data that y'all collect at the street level far more credible than stuff that comes down from, let's just leave it at much higher authority. It's got, I mean, you're there, you're seeing it. And if we can take that as a message up, that was the reason for my question, because back to financing, if people are coming to Charleston from other parts, then that gives us something to go to the state and say, hey, we're taking over an undue, you know, we're carrying more than our fair share. You got to help us out some more. So that's why your data is pertinent and why I was asking the question.
Carol?
Yeah, I just had one comment. I mean, I love the fact that you've come and presented here, and it's clear that each of you have a passion for what you're doing. And we in the city of Charleston, the county of Charleston, are really fortunate to have you doing the work you're doing. You're doing the Lord's work, the Good Samaritan, you're being the Good Samaritans, and thank you for that. We really appreciate it.
So commissioners, in addition to completing the postcard, is there any recommendation for action at this point?
I think we should have conversation with people that we're relying on. You know, there's no reason for us to make a suggestion. It's not going to be one that really hits a home run.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure. If not, again, thank you so much. We've learned so much. Manager's update.
In lieu of time, the manager update was sent over to everyone, so I won't go through everything. Just hitting highlighted points. The History Commission has requested a joint meeting. They're gonna have their meeting on October 8th. And they were wondering if Hark would want to join that meeting, but just keep in mind that Hark meeting is the next day. So I'll send out a poll after this meeting about the joint commission meeting. Moja Arts Festival also starts September 25th through October 5th. I'll send out that link. And then there are some grant opportunities that exist that I will also send out links to that the Charleston County Settlement Community Project are accepting applications for, with the funding from $25K to $50K. I also sent out, as far as the ordinance revision, I know that there was some comments. If you could send those to me, I would appreciate it, because we do make our presentation on September 18th with city council meeting being in October, and September is National Hispanic Heritage Month. Do you have,
I'm-
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. And one more thing before I get your question, Carol. I sent out a link in Google Drive because that document is pretty large. If you didn't receive it, please let me know and I'll send the link out again. It's the Historic Preservation Research Public Burial Grounds. Go ahead, Carol, I'm ready.
Carol, the question to,
Are you gonna delve more into the 106 Cummings Street
yes,
questions? Okay, so then my quick question is, I know the last time we talked about who is making the presentation to the Community Development Committee on behalf of HARC for the changes that we're reacting to the change of the Human Affairs Racial Conciliation Commission Division 11 ordinance. I understand you're going to be out of town on September 18th.
that's correct.
So who is going to represent HARC?
I talked to co-chair, he said he will be at that meeting. And related to that item, I think communication today to me, did you send it to everybody?
No, I sent it directly to you because it was your question.
Okay, so the question of what gets presented, the Community Development Committee will be focusing primarily on the ordinance. The document that was circulated that has the blue comments
Yeah, I
reflects
have
what it is.
Yep, right here.
Yeah, oh, everyone has, Jerry,
All
sorry.
right, I'm just saying, so that will be the
The blue
substance.
line.
Right,
Mhm.
right. The question of what in the terms of a report gets more data that gets presented. Adrian and I have had a couple of conversations about it.
Mhm.
I went back and looked at the PowerPoint presentation that we had begun to draft in, I guess, May or June.
Spring.
And I think we can cut and paste, cut it down to a short enough basis so that the committee won't get overwhelmed by the presentation. I think we can use this as a basis. What it contains is a quick background and context, when we were formed, et cetera, et cetera. And then priorities, progress in 2024, because we had not reported that in priorities for 2025. So in essence, in 3 slides, we can accomplish, provide the information that they need. Stephen will be there along with Adrian at the committee level, and other members of the commission certainly are willing to attend.
Okay, and then what are we expecting of the Community Development Committee? What are we asking them?
The Community Development Committee is the amendment of the ordinance, right? The recommendation regarding the status of the ordinance, the reauthorization would come from that committee to the city council.
But as HARC, are we asking them to agree to the blue line version that we're submitting to
So
them on
yes,
18th?
yes.
Okay, and who's gonna make that request?
Stephen will be there to indicate that the blue
Okay.
comments are what, I mean, it has specifically in it described what the language proposed is, and Adrian went so far as to identify the vote by the commission as it relates to those things. So Stephen will be there to respond to any questions about that.
Make it clear that that's what we would
That's correct.
appreciate the council
That's correct.
adopting as their
That's correct.
amended version.
That's correct.
And then when will the council make that decision for
The,
themselves?
the presumption is if they present
Mhm.
to the committee in September, a meeting in October, there would be action, assuming that the committee takes some action.
Yes.
If the committee does not take action, then it'll be deferred until they get to it.
Okay, thank you.
We have no control over that. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, so an action, going to old business, the, one thing you didn't comment on, is the youth initiatives conversation. At our last meeting, actually, last 2 meetings, we had a conversation about what the city was doing as it relates to youth initiatives besides the curfew. We collected some information. Stephen presented some ideas. In my last conversation with Adrian, we were discussing putting together a similar panel around youth initiatives, right, to be presented perhaps at the October meeting.
At our.
At our October meeting, right? I mean so in her update, she had indicated that the mayor's youth council meets quarterly. The meetings are private meetings, but they do have an agenda. So I would imagine that we can get at least a copy of the agenda. And hopefully the staff person that staffs that will be with us. Jerome Smalls, who is working in the police department, has some initiatives. He's someone else, Mindy Strom. So minimally, they would be part of that discussion. So that's where we are around youth initiatives. The Cumming Street Commons Project. I did that.
Right.
So
Yeah, there was.
tongue-tied all the time. The College of Charleston's proposal.
There was a typo.
The memo dated
Yeah.
September 2nd from the Protect and Respect the Bodies Coalition kind of provides, I think, a pretty decent update, factual update on where things are moving. The report of consultants made to the College of Charleston, this BVL, is a document that describes the site, the history of the site, and goes into the history rather deeply. I would urge you to read that, and because I think that'll be when we meet with the History Commission, this will probably be the substance about the history of the site. The college has submitted a permit to proceed with demolition, architectural excavation, and initial pile driving. And the State Department of Environmental Services Bureau of Coastal Management has to approve that permit. Our understanding is that the permit has been filed. There were several, over 100 comments sent in. As a consequence, we're anticipating a public hearing being scheduled by the State Department on that application here in Charleston at some point. Date right now is unknown, but that's where that's proceeding. And then they make reference in this also to the.
Tom's hand is up.
Excuse me?
I said Tom's hand is up.
Okay. Yeah, Tom.
Before everybody gets away, Jerry, I want to thank you in particular and all of you fellow commissioners. From where I sit in COVID Central, it looked like a wonderful meeting. And, I miss all of you, and have a good weekend.
Right. Thank you. And thank you for all your hard work in pulling this together.
Good job. Great job.
Right. So the final notation regarding the information that's in this memo, they make reference to an August 31st Post and Courier commentary, a joint letter from Mayor Cogswell and the President and President Hsu regarding the project, which concludes with the notion of them thinking about some form of community engagement, community committee of some kind. No more information is available about that at this time. There are a set of recommendations that go along with this memo that was presented at the History Commission and adopted, which kind of lays out some work to be done, commitments to be made, and think it appropriate for this body to affirm these recommendations if we agree with them.
So I'm sorry, you said that was made at the History Committee?
Right, this was presented and voted on at the History Commission. They approved these bullets as part of their work program. And, consistent with our agreement to work with them, I think it's appropriate for us to do similar if we so decide, and if there are additional things that we'd like to add that allow me and Dr. Green to work to move us toward the
Right,
toward
so
the meetings.
we will see their recommendations before we have our joint meeting? Is that what you're saying?
So it's not clear,
Okay.
all right? Part of, there are two buckets here, all right? The knowing what the college is doing in its timetable, right, will help define what it is that we're recommending. The meeting on September 22nd, they may present some things, okay, that we need to talk about and make comment about. All right. So the notion of what the substance is that we're still in the information kind of gathering framework, and I'm asking you to do. So these actions are really about getting smarter, okay, about the situation. So September 22nd is the next meeting of the convened by the college as a community information meeting. Anticipate from what I've heard from other people who've met with President Xu and actually the commentary in August 31st, there probably will be some comments and reactions to some of the things that have been talked about publicly. Some new information should come out of that. So asking, is there a recommendation or a motion to affirm these recommendations as presented in this memo?
So moved.
Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Discussion. Questions?
No.
No questions? Okay. If there's no further unreadness, all those in favor of affirming these recommendations?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? So ordered. Okay, I think we
Excuse me.
covered everything we
Tom's hand is up again.
yes, Tom.
Oh, yeah.
You're muted, Tom.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Adrian and Jasmine as well. So I've had a difficult time here with the volume, but have a good evening.
Thanks, sir.
Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Love you, Tom.
So we take that as a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
If there's no further
I would be remiss
business,
if I
let's
didn't thank
stand.
Adrian and
A
Jasmine
comment?
as well.
Yes.
So,
I'm sorry.
I've had a difficult time here. with the
Before we
volume.
adjourn.
Before we adjourn.
Yeah, so just real briefly, a couple weeks ago, didn't want to go any further without acknowledging. A couple weeks ago, a church, school at a church was attacked. Somebody fired an assault rifle into the church blindly, trying to kill as many children as possible. He killed 2 people. It was a Catholic school. And, from a Jewish community perspective, this just continues to highlight that our places of worship and our religious institutions have become targets for people who want to commit acts of violence. And our state does not currently have a nonprofit or faith-based institution security grant program like exists in a lot of other states. So these expenses fall onto our communities. We have to hire off-duty police officers and security professionals for our services based on best practices in 2025. And this is costing our synagogues upwards of $50,000 a year. And just from an organizational perspective,
it's recommended at every one of our events when we file permits that we have to hire off-duty police officers. It's become a huge expense, and it's a public safety issue. And a lot of our organizations, and speaking with, our friends in the Catholic diocese and at Mother Emanuel and in other places, we think this ought to be something that our state contributes to, and helps offset for our places of worship. I just wanted to add, with what happened yesterday, the conservative activist that was killed in Utah, that one of the things that we've talked about on this commission has been bringing people together who don't agree on very controversial and heated issues, and the need for those conversations to take place. And I just want to renew my commitment as a member of this commission to encouraging those kinds of dialogues and facilitating them when we can. I think our country, the people in our communities, we've reached a toxic level of division, wherein people hate each other. People really hate each other without knowing much more about each other than who they voted for in the last election. And we have to figure out a way to overcome this hatred. It hurts. And 99% of what we do every day is sit in Charleston traffic, deal with flooding, go to work, pray, think about our families, and that ought to be enough to have in common with our neighbors to be able to relate to each other. And I'm not sure what that work looks like in practice, but I think it ought to be something that's on our plate, and I think we all have to make an effort to relate to people who think differently than us. It's a world that I don't want my niece and the next generation to have to grow up in, and yeah, and it's not just because of this conservative activist. A couple months ago, it was 2 Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota. Before that, it was a firebombing of Josh Shapiro's home. The governor of Pennsylvania. It has just gotten out of control. And before something like this happens in Charleston again, I just think we ought to help figure out how to bridge these gaps and overcome this issue.
So from my perspective, I thank you for those comments. We established the Human Relations Work Group, right? It was a heat release effort around the question of Palestine and Israel. And we have not dug down to do that work. And what it takes, this conversation we had today on unhoused took the work of a commissioner, right, to pull together the bodies. Perhaps, we lost Adam, who was part of that effort, but we need to bring that back, if you will. It's clear, as I said, I think in many ways, the utility or the value of this body is kind of as a place where constructive conversation can go on. And it's not about how many votes you're going to get, yes or no, right? It's about getting the information. And I think you're right. There needs to be more of that in this community. But, a small band of 9, we got to do the work. Okay, so if you have some ideas to bring that back to some action that we can take, let's make that happen.
Well, I am not compelling anybody else to do anything, but I'm just announcing in some way that I'm renewing my commitment towards that project. And we can't take time off in that general effort. And I see people who are supposed to be leaders in our community and elsewhere, feeding into this issue. And I think we ought to be not just working on this ourselves, but also holding leaders accountable for feeding this divide. And anyway, if there's a motion that needs to be attached to that, we should meet.
We've got the work group, right? We've got the work group. We need to do the work, right? Figure out how the work group bring back what it is that we should be doing. If we're convening people, if people are inviting us, to sessions, or we're aware of, initiatives that are underway, bring them, let's raise that up. Because, people are in the business now of seeking out those things that will divide us, right, in order to get a vote or a contract or whatever they need, just generally up and down. So people to people becomes important. So while we still have the human relations, and racial conciliation, title in our name, let's get it done. We got at least between now and October.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Okay. Can you stand adjourned? Thank you so much.